You reap what you sow.
Yeah.
Essentially, this is also karma.
Yeah.
You do good. If you do good, you go to heaven, or you go to hell. If you do bad, and this concept of karma is only an extension of this same thing, of going to heaven or hell.
Yeah.
That it could happen during the results can come even during this life.
Yeah.
Or in a future life. So
Yeah.
it's really very simple.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Chris. Then if Richard has a simple question, I'll take it. No, I'm serious, because we have to finish the sutta today.
What about aiding and abetting or assisting in killing?
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Okay, for instance, if you pay your taxes, builds the military, government kills people, what if you in failing to protest, that is, you allow your money to be spent that way.
No, that's a big topic for a discussion. I don't have the time. I want to cover the basic principles of the sutta, not to get into the intricate ethical questions that arise, but just the one point that you brought up when you first phrased the question. Sometimes what is said is, under each of the karmic actions, that there are sort of three aspects. One is directly performing the action oneself. The second is by commissioning somebody else to perform it on one's behalf. So I don't want, I'm the big bank, how do you call this, the bank robber, but I don't go to the bank myself in order to pull a gun on the tellers, but I got my guys, my goons.
Well, we're always told, for instance,
yeah.
We're always told, for instance, if the government acts in our name, government goes around the world saying that it's acting in our name.
I mean, this brings up sort of, subtle matters of, ethical reflection. Right now, I'm just trying to...
Okay. Well, let me just ask one quick question then.
I thought
are there four functions or three?
Wait, I didn't finish the three aspects related to each of the ethical principles. So one is directly personally performing the action. The second is commissioning or encouraging somebody else to perform it. And the third is approving of or rejoicing in the action once it's been done.
Okay.
So those are the three aspects. Okay, we'll take Chris, then, I'm sorry, you have to hold the question.
Bhante, are we talking about just the action itself or the thought? Because many times, like what I think Debbie was saying, many people may not actually carry it out, and that would be the action, but many people might think of killing somebody and not carry it out, or wish another one harm.
Okay. That is another matter. Having the thought, the intention, the wish is creating unwholesome karma, but it's not tantamount to the act of actually killing somebody. So it creates unwholesome karma, but the unwholesome karma probably will not be as grave as that of actually completing the act of killing, executing the act of killing. Okay, let us move on. Okay, here we have somebody who is angry and irritable. This is sort of a stock sutta description of the angry person. So even when criticized a little, they get offended, they become angry, hostile and resentful. Okay, because of performing such actions, they are reborn in a state of deprivation. That's the bad destination. Okay, I mean, I think if somebody maybe becomes really habitually violent in character and very full of anger, that can happen. It seems to me a bit dubious that it will happen with just somebody who, in the normal course of events, gets angry and displeased. Okay, but if instead a person comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is ugly. So this is the way that leads to ugliness, namely one is angry and of an irritable character. Okay, then the opposite of this, I'm going to go quickly through some of the less problematic sections. Well, there's also, I could see some problems here, which I'll bring up after I go through the counterpart section. Okay, so here we have somebody who is not angry and irritable. Even when they're criticized a lot, they don't become angry. Okay, and because of performing such actions, that is, because of exercising this restraint over anger and not becoming angry, they're reborn in a happy destination, the heavenly world. But if that person comes back to the human state, then wherever he or she is reborn, they are beautiful. So this is the way that leads to being beautiful. Namely, one is, let's put it in a positive way, one is patient, forbearing, soft and gentle of character, and does not display anger, hate, and bitterness. Okay, one could see how this can be almost an extrapolation from the facial expression that appears on us in response as a reflection of our moods. So when somebody gets angry, then the scowl appears on the face, the muscles tighten, and one has an ugly expression. Whereas if somebody is patient and forbearing, then the face looks calm, benign, gentle. And so that you could see how that would be projected onto future lives, that as a human being one will become one will have an ugly expression. If one is patient, then one will become beautiful. But one reason why I could see this as a bit problematic is that I know people who from a worldly point of view would say that they're ugly, but they're very kind, considerate, compassionate, patient. And other people who, again in worldly terms, would say, they're beautiful, maybe movie stars, well, I don't know women who win beauty contests. I don't know any personally. But I can imagine that they get angry and irritated very easily. So how do we make this out? Doesn't it seem like a contradiction? Okay, so this is the explanation in terms of the difference between the past life, say, character traits, and the present life, character traits. Somebody else was going to say? Are you going to say the same thing? Okay, so that might be a way to understand it. So I would think that past life character traits, habitual dispositions would tend to be transmitted from one life to the next, so that if one forms a disposition of being patient and forbearing in an earlier life, then in this life one will have that tendency to be patient. But one could still see that there are these underlying tendencies towards anger, ill will, which if they're provoked by environmental conditions, family upbringing, economic conditions, or any series of experiences, it will exacerbate those tendencies and then activate them so that they manifest in the form of a disposition to anger and ill will. Okay, let's go on to, okay, the next one is somebody, man or woman, who is envious, who envies, resents, and begrudges the gains, honor, respect, reverence, salutations, and veneration of others. Okay, so again, this envy, if it takes on the rebirth-generating role, it's a rebirth in the bad destinations. But if instead that person comes back to the human state, then wherever he or she is reborn, he is uninfluential or without power to influence events. So this is the way that leads to being uninfluential, that one is envious towards the gains, honor, and reverence of others. Okay, then we have the opposite case. Somebody is not envious. They don't envy, resent, and begrudge the gains, honors of others. But instead, he comes back to the human state, and wherever he is reborn, he is influential or powerful. Who would we say have been some powerful people? Let's take the 20th century. Influential, powerful people. No. I'm not. Mm. 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 Jane? Excuse me? Oh yeah, that's good.
Ralph Nader?
I'm trying to get some controversial cases. That's what I had those in mind, yeah. I want to get some people on the opposite side of the spectrum. Maybe we take both sides. Okay, we call the people who have been influential for positive developments. So we've had Pete Seeger, Ralph Nader, though he's always been snubbed by those in power, so he always has to struggle and fight, doesn't make it. Martin Luther King. Then we have the negative side. So far we've had the Koch brothers. Very influential, very powerful. And how long did he live? What was his age when? Too long. But he lived to his 80s, right? 75? It's okay, a fairly long lifespan. So it's not, you could say Adolf Hitler, but Adolf Hitler, was cut off. And he lived to be what? He got to be 100. Wow. Strom Thurmond, yeah. Joseph Stalin. How old was? Yeah, so, it's not the case that they get cut off early in life, not like Hitler and Mussolini. So they have long lifespans. They're very powerful and influential. They get everything goes their way pretty much. 82, yeah. I thought that he was in his 80s. So they were very influential. This is not the lifespan. I'm just getting the lifespan so that we don't have those. Yeah, the lifespan is part of good, but that's a different type of karma. But can we imagine that the Koch brothers, Joseph Stalin, Chairman Mao, in previous life didn't envy and begrudged? when they had to knock off in this life, they had to knock off competitors to get into that powerful position. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. You're wrong.
Because I can't say I grew up as a Buddhist, but we've been through a lot of Buddhist classes. I kind of feel that we're taking the wrong path with this type of discussion, because I've always been taught that with karma, you don't focus on the consequences and trying to trace back and trying to see what did they do to get here, instead of looking into the future. If I do something now, it will lead to something in the future. And in the Mahayana path, we were always told that only the fools will pay attention to the consequences we're receiving. The bodhisattvas pay attention to the causes we're creating right now. So I am very serious about this. I feel that we're going down the wrong path with our American friends here. Because if you do that, you go crazy. Because for example, like currently I'm at work, I'm working very, very hard, getting no pay, because we feel that there are certain things we need to turn around for the good of the majority, while there are people, our colleagues, doing nothing, getting more pay and getting better reputation. And if you keep digging in terms of karma, all I can say is that they have better karmas in the past, either that or creating bad karmas now. I don't want to compare my karma with theirs, otherwise I go crazy. So
okay, you've said enough. That's actually a very, very good point. And I mean, in this class itself, when I've been asked questions about karma, I always say that and my advice is not that we don't try to start from what we're experiencing in the present and then say, this must be the result of some karma in the past, and then trace that present experience back to the past and say, therefore we must have done such and such deeds. But rather, I always say that we should look at karma from the standpoint of the cause proceeding forward to the effect. But the sutta itself, in a way, sets itself up for this kind of, I have to say, it does, It does set itself up for that kind of analysis. Anyway, let us continue. Okay, so now we have somebody, now I'm in section 13. So this is going to be the pair of the consequences is poverty and wealth. And so we have a man or woman who does not give food, drink, all the items that one would give to recluses and Brahmins back in ancient India. And so because of performing and undertaking such action, in a sense, withholding things, having a miserly attitude, not being willing to give, that is considered in itself an action, a karma. So because of performing and undertaking such action, that person reappears, is reborn in a bad destination. But if instead they come back to the human state, then wherever they are reborn, they are poor. And so it says, this is the way, student, that leads to poverty. Namely, one doesn't give food and so forth to ascetics and Brahmins. And then what is the way that leads? Now we take the converse case. So here we have the man or woman who gives all of these items to ascetics and Brahmins. And then because of performing and undertaking such wholesome action, they are reborn in a happy destination. But if they come back to the human state, then wherever they are reborn, they are wealthy. So that is the way, student, that leads to wealth, namely giving food, so forth, to ascetics and Brahmins. in a sense, I have to say that if this is the way that leads to wealth, doesn't it imply that if somebody is wealthy, we can trace their wealth, their prosperity back to giving? Mm. Yeah, in fact, there are like other suttas which speak about the causes for acquiring wealth, and those suttas don't even mention past karma. They say that if a person wants to acquire wealth, they should be energetic, diligent, make an effort, and apply themselves skillfully to their business, their enterprise. Wait, let me just think of the sutta. Alavaka Sutta. It's in the Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 10, sutta number 10, I think. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's why I find some of this problematic. I would say that there are, social conditions, economic conditions that cause and maintain poverty. And it's pretty hard to say that everybody who's living in poverty is in that condition because in previous lives they didn't give gifts to ascetics and Brahmins. And also I find it hard to believe that, this is again what I find problematic, say the super rich people, I mean there are a few good ones, but a lot of them are very miserly and even do very unscrupulous things to enhance their wealth. The Koch brothers, yeah. And yet I would think that they didn't, if they had been generous in a previous lives, that generous tendency would have carried through into the present, is that they would have had the tendency to be generous in this life. But there's just so many details in the workings of karma that, I can't answer all these questions. Yeah, but the sutta is not concerned with the way to Nibbana, but the way to good. The question is, what is it that distinguishes beings as fortunate and unfortunate?
I was going to make a comment that we were saying, I mean, if let's say a child is born into a really wealthy family,
Yeah.
Like it might be because in a previous life, he was very generous. But now in this current family, although he's wealthy,
Yeah.
in his current family, maybe his current family raises him to be more miserly, and so now that tendency kind of being generous suddenly, like he kind of like, not brainwashed, but just raised to be more miserly by his wealthy family. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's why it changes.
Yeah, there's an interplay between past tendencies and
And then present conditions, right.
And probably very often the present conditions can overwhelm and overpower the past tendencies.
Yeah, that's how I think of it.
Okay, I want to move on. No, I lost the place. Oh, 14. Okay, so we finished 14. Okay, now we have a man or a woman who is obstinate and arrogant, who does not pay homage to one who should receive homage and so on, who does not revere and venerate those who should be honored, respected, revered, and venerated, And we have to remember that this is being taught or spoken in the Indian cultural context, where there were especially the ascetics and the renunciants who would be traditionally given honor and veneration. Okay, so because of withholding this honor and veneration to those who should be venerated, if that person has that stubborn and obstinate and arrogant attitude, that generates the unwholesome karma that can lead to rebirth in a bad destination. And when they come back to the human state, then wherever they are reborn, they can be low-born. So this is the way that leads to low birth, namely one is obstinate and arrogant and does not honor those who should be honored. Okay, then we come the converse case. Somebody is not obstinate and arrogant. He pays homage to one who should receive homage, and so on. As a result of that action, he can be reborn in the good destination in the heavenly world, but if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is of high birth. Okay, this is the area of the particular passage that I'm finding somewhat problematic, because we have here, particularly against the Indian social context, the division of society into at least 4 main social classes or castes. The main 4 social classes would be the Brahmin, using the Buddhist sequence, the Kshatriyas and Brahmins. Those are considered the high castes. Then the Vaishyas, the Kshatriyas are the administrators, the rulers, the political aristocrats. The Vaishyas are the business class, financiers, the landowners. So we could call this the middle class. And then there is the 4th class, which might have even been the majority, which are the Shudras, the menial class, the workers and the servants. And then even below the Shudras are those who are outside the class system, what are called the outcasts. So those are, the lowest of those outside the class system are the outcasts, even those whose touch is who are considered untouchable and who are living in utter poverty, despised and condemned by those in the other social classes. And so, if one says that, this being humble and respectful then becomes the karmic cause for rebirth into high families, whereas being obstinate and arrogant is the cause for rebirth into the low families, that is, as a Shudra or outside the class system, outside the caste system, then it seems one is giving a karmic justification for the caste system. And yet, we always say that the Buddha rejected the Hindu explanation of the class system, or caste system is determined by karma. It seems very problematic to me. Yeah, maybe you please take the microphone.
In the sutta, though, the Buddha isn't saying that you get reborn in a good destination when you honor and respect people in the higher caste than you. It says the good effects, come to one who honors and respects and reveres one who should be honored, respected, and revered.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily somebody, anybody who's in a higher
Oh, yeah,
caste,
no.
right?
I'm not speaking with reference to that. What I'm
Okay.
speaking with reference to is the condition in which he's reborn when he comes back to the human world. That is, when you go I think it's about 8 lines down in paragraph 16. If instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is highborn. And then the opposite of that is in paragraph 15, but if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is lowborn. And so this is you making a distinction against the backdrop of the Indian class system, of the division of the social classes into high birth and low birth, birth into prestigious families and into insignificant families.
But I think it is more pleasant to be born into one of the higher castes, right? I mean, I think that's what he's referring to.
It's certainly more pleasant, but
Right.
doesn't it seem to be giving a karmic justification for the class system? Wait, one at a time. I think Edwin, Ravi.
But the Buddha was born, highborn. So I mean, he was rich. I mean,
Yeah.
and yet he chose to go, caste. So
Excuse me?
the Buddha chose to go outcast. In other words, he went out.
Well, you see,
Decided.
even though the ascetics, the shramanas, were outside the caste system, but they were not outcasts in the
Okay,
sense in
I
which
see.
the chandalas or the scavengers would be considered garbage collectors, and
course.
the toilet cleaners, the latrine cleaners would be considered, and the charnel ground workers, the cremation ground workers would be considered outcasts.
But wouldn't be a person that's more humble and has a lot less, have a better chance to practice than a person that has a lot or rich? Isn't that a chance to actually be more of consumed with sins, and sensual desire because of so much money? I mean, you see rich people, they're not really happy a lot of times. And yet you see poor people that actually are very, very happy. I meet that all the time.
I actually found that to be the case. Not the really miserably poor people, but people who are living in very humble conditions, what I could observe, well, in Sri Lanka, perhaps even in this country. Of course, people want to be secure economically, and so they'll have a lot of complaints, but they sometimes often have an inner happiness that one doesn't see with the rich people. In fact, a little inside information that I gleaned, when I was living in Sri Lanka, sometimes we would go on alms round, especially when we was staying in Colombo, to the houses, and sort of the inner knowledge that we had was, don't go to the houses of the rich people. If you go there and they come out and they'll give like a spoon of rice or a couple of bananas, really, I'm not exaggerating, and congratulate themselves. What we thought were the best houses to go to, in case any of you get to be monks in Sri Lanka, well, I would call lower middle class, or sort of like the humble village level people, even if they're living in the city, because they have strong devotion to the Buddha Dharma, and they're very generous, naturally very generous. Oh, you can do it. Don't tell anybody. Richard, yeah. Oh, okay, Ravi, then Richard.
Yeah, Siddhartha was born a prince, so technically his caste was royalty.
Oh, yeah.
So that doesn't change because caste system, I believe, is from birth. But today in the world, Bhante, you have the class system. The millionaires will be there, the poorer people.
Yeah.
So this at that time, the jobs went from father to son.
Yeah.
So it developed as a caste system, which most people are against because you can't better yourself in that system.
Yeah.
But
But now
today we have the
when
class system.
Siddhartha or Gautama became a mendicant, then, and this is the true throughout India, when you become a mendicant, a shramana or a sannyasi, you give up your caste status.
I don't see this as the Buddha giving karmic justification to the. I just see it as him just making an observation and just saying, well,
it's not a justification, but it's giving an explanation.
An
It seems to be
explanation,
giving an
yeah.
explanation.
Because
that
if you read it, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, he's always accepted anyone into the Sangha.
Oh, I mean,
and-
that is true.
and
Yeah.
he didn't really,
Yeah.
discriminate.
There's no justification for the class system, and within the monastic order itself, the Buddha accepted, not only did he accept everybody, but whoever joins has to give up their class status.
Right.
And we even have cases of, outcasts, people from outcasts who become arahats, and then they become, more spiritually prestigious than people from the Brahmin class who
Right.
remain worldlings.
Right.
Okay, I want to take Richard's question, then I have to go through and finish the sutta. We'll have a discussion period after lunch. Yeah. I'm showing a movie. Oh, it's today. Yeah. 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 You've seen the movie? Yeah. Okay, Richard.
Yeah, I think that the doctrine is one thing, but the social use
Yeah.
is another.
Yeah.
And it strikes me that what's here is an arsenal for social control. That is, if you say that, that is anyone who's lower caste who complains about anything or
Yeah.
is truculent in any way or ever gets angry
Yeah.
and so on is told, well, this is why you're lower caste, and you're going to be lower caste in your next life too. And meanwhile, the upper castes are given this tacit praise. It says, well, it's because you're modest and you revere the right people and all of that, that's why you're on top. And so no matter how arrogant they appear,
Yeah.
it's discounted because
Yeah.
there's supposed to be this prior proof that they're good, that their past lives have to have been good, right? So it's a means of manipulating society that's here. And also, I don't know what evidence there is
Yeah.
that this is not a demonstration of Hindus, of upper caste Hindus recapturing Buddhism after the Buddha's death, as I believe Nagarjuna.
Yeah.
Nagarjuna was born a Brahmin.
Yeah.
And the doctrines that he has, or he's inserting Hindu doctrines into Buddhism. I think the same thing is happening here. By the way, what
I
you
think
said,
this merits further discussion, but I want to
Yes.
finish the sutta because I actually heard the bell ring or the blocks sound. So let's
Okay.
bring this up later, and we'll just go through. There are a couple of paragraphs left. Okay, now we come to paragraph 17. So we have the case of a man or woman who doesn't visit an ascetic or a Brahmin and ask what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, blamable, blameless, what should be cultivated, not cultivated, what leads to suffering, what leads to happiness. And then because of performing such action, that is not visiting the ascetic or Brahmin, when they come back to the human state, then whenever they're reborn, they are stupid. So the stupidity, the commentary says, doesn't come simply from the fact that they're not visiting the ascetic or Brahmin, but from the fact that they're not getting information about what is wholesome and unwholesome. And so you have to come regularly to the class. Okay. And then, in contrast, some man or woman rings the gong while a monk or ascetic is teaching the Dhamma. Wherever he is reborn, that person is deaf. Okay. The contrary case, the person visits the ascetic or Brahmin, asks what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, and so on. And then because of performing and undertaking such action, they are reborn in a happy destiny. But when they come back to the human state, wherever they are reborn, they are wise. So this is the way that leads to wisdom, namely visiting an ascetic or Brahmin and asking such questions. Okay, so that takes us through the analysis, the Buddha's analysis of karma, and then comes a sort of just summary. So the Buddha says, the way that leads to short life makes people short-lived, the way that leads to long life makes people long-lived, and so on and so forth. The way that leads to stupidity makes people stupid. The way that leads to wisdom makes people wise. And I think also by stupidity here, we have to understand not like having a low IQ or inferior intellectual capacities, but basically being unwise, not having an understanding of how to act and conduct oneself. And then comes just a repetition of the general principle that beings are owners of their karma, heirs of their karma. It is their karma that distinguishes them as inferior and superior. And then when the Buddha completes the discourse, then the Subha, the young Brahmin, expresses his appreciation, and now he goes for refuge, and then goes for refuge to the Triple Gem. Okay, so this will take care of our explanation of the sutta, and we'll have a discussion period. Maybe we'll come back at 12:15, and then have a discussion about some of the problems that we can find in the sutta. Okay, so we'll end with the sharing of the merits. So we share the merits with the devas, the bhutas or fear spirits, the nagas, the dragon spirits, and all beings. Akasata cha bhumata deva naga mahitika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu sasanam. Akasata cha bhumata deva naga mahitika punyantang